Welcome everyone to What the Force, and welcome to a fun series as we cover Star Wars Visions. And with me to cover all of the episode of Star Wars Visions is Hammy.
Hi everyone! Yay! We're so excited.
And we did a fun pre-show where we talked all about the episodes, sort of a little bit of speculation around them, which was a lot of fun. And some of them I was a little bit right, and then some of them I was like way off, which is also fun to be surprised in Star Wars. That's also fun.
Yeah, no, definitely. The speculation was good because it would kind of gave us a good intro to get into the mood for Visions.
Yeah. So just as a little bit of a heads up, this episode is going to be a tiny bit of an intro into the, what we saw, kind of the commonalities of what we saw, but we're only going to be covering the first episode, the Duel. And then we're going to release subsequent mini episode deep dives into each of the episodes following this. So follow along, open up the next one. It should be in your feed after this one is done. We just wanted to break it into pieces in case you wanted to listen to them one by one after you watch the episodes. All right.
So it's going to be full spoilers.
Yes, absolutely full spoilers. And we'll probably say that at the start of every episode too. Okay, so Hammy, what did you think of Star Wars Visions?
It was really, really cool. I know that's so generic to say, but it was, I think we were excited to see the blend of anime with all of the Star Wars iconography. And that's exactly what they did. It was basically like a remix. That's what it felt like. I think it was more of a remix than even I thought or imagined. I thought they would kind of pick one little thing and explore that, and that's it. But each episode had so much going for it in terms of the themes, the iconography, which parts of the saga that they were pulling from, character traits, all of it was kind of blended together. And you could kind of, from 1 minute to the next, it would kind of change where they were pulling from in the saga. So it kind of made me really appreciate it, that it wasn't just, this is our original trilogy short, this is our sequel trilogy short. It was kind of like so blended together, and you were like, I'm getting full Star Wars. So I really appreciated the remixing that they were doing.
Yeah, and it was really interesting to me, the things that the episodes focused on. And we'll probably deep dive into those a little bit more as we get into each of the episodes. But to me, the episode ended up being sort of like these snapshot formative experiences for the individuals that were participating in the episode. So the characters were going through something that was fundamental about them transforming or changing as characters. And we only get to see this like little brief window into their experiences. I'm not going to argue about canon or anything because I don't really care. It's a Star Wars story, and it succeeds in ways that many Star Wars stories actually just don't, right? Mm-hmm. Some of these shorts are as good or better than full-on movies that we've experienced in the Star Wars saga. It doesn't matter if it was canon or not. To me, it was just pulling on thematic elements that are so Star Wars and presenting them with such a unique lens that maybe we hadn't even seen before. And that, to me, was really important.
Yeah, no. So what it kind of triggered for me when I was watching them, it reminded me of, we had mentioned in our speculation episode, Legends of Luke Skywalker. So that kind of anthology to like, you can just kind of take each bite-sized piece and it's telling you something about the Star Wars universe. And then also, it's non-canon. So it's kind of like you're getting a fable or a parable of like, these certain characters. And then also it really reminded me of Mortis. And I know 2 seconds into the podcast and we're bringing up Mortis, but it really does remind me of that because you get all these different versions of the story, the same story being told. And you're not, did it really happen? Did Ahsoka, did Anakin and Ahsoka, did they really go there or did they not? It doesn't really matter. It's, it's kind of like a view into the Force and how we can look at it. I saw each one kind of like that.
Each had an aspect of relationship to the Force. There was certainly that. But there was also this sort of characteristic take on Star Wars that is, I would say, often ignored. And it's just an insertion of more feminine experiences. Straight up, just having high heels in the Star Wars universe blew my mind. And it's just like so sexy of them. I'm going to talk about it more in the Village Bride, but everybody had earrings in that episode, like men, women, the bad guys, like everybody. And there was like makeup and style. And I hadn't felt that way since The Last Jedi with Leia's costuming. And then from before that, I hadn't felt that way since Padme was on screen. And to me, that was just like so important. There was other experiences like Lop and Ochō, also like her full like stylistic lady outfit that she was wearing, Ochō, with the giant like bow that or like rope bow that was part of her costume. Everything felt beautiful except when it wasn't beautiful, and it didn't need to be beautiful, but there was more beauty just by stylistically adding these things into the Star Wars universe. Not everything needed to be browns, blacks, and grays.
Right. Yeah. That and I think it kind of matched, each character felt so unique, only in terms of their animation style and the actual like styling of their character, but it went down to the styling of their character. So it matched that person's personality. And so I don't think we've kind of lost a little bit of that uniqueness for each character. Yeah. It's, we don't all need to be in resistance jackets. We can have a little variety in the costuming.
And like, even though they brought in like things that are quite standard for Star Wars, like ponchos, like there's strategic use of ponchos. Those ponchos were even like pretty, and they had patterns. I mean, patterns in Star Wars is so weird and rare. Like, truthfully, you don't see patterns on clothing, on textiles. I don't know if I'm going to shut up about this because I love it. And like everything that was like inserted from a stylistic choice perspective, I want to see more of in Star Wars. Yeah.
I'm totally in agreement on that.
Yeah. As well as each of these stories also had a common thread, which was in some way the main character had a relation to a lightsaber.
I thought that was really cool too. And not just the lightsaber, but also a connection to the Force. They didn't shy away from discussing that or tapping into the Force or mentioning it or it being woven throughout the story as something overarching. We never were questioning whether the Force was there in the story.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like, although I know sometimes like some people have negative reactions to Jedi or to lightsaber wielders, I think that it fulfills a very interesting niche in the ability to protect those around you. And that's what was being drawn on from the creators' minds when they think about lightsabers, right? And how they view them, and they play an interesting role in each of the episodes. And it is a key role, but it's also like something that is reflected in what is a sword, right? A sword is the power to defend or to kill. And what happens to your ability to defend or kill if that sword is taken away from you, if that sword is given to you, if that sword is something that you're afraid to use. And it's just a really, really interesting through line of this whole series, even though these shorts are disconnected and on their own.
And it kind of plays into the power dynamics in each one. The back and forth of who has the sword, who's wielding the sword and pulling it out at what moment. And like you said, using it to defend. It kind of elevates the sabers in each one of these. It's not just a weapon to just be used willy-nilly. At least when the heroes are using it, it's being drawn at an important moment in their it kind of links to their character story as well. Yeah,
exactly. And this is all like just so interesting to view it through this lens. And I know I could be cynical and say like, oh, this is just because Star Wars wants to sell more lightsabers, but it worked on me. This is the right way to sell more lightsabers, in my opinion.
Definitely.
Who doesn't want a microphone lightsaber after watching Tatooine Rhapsody?
Exactly.
Yeah. Just a shout out to David W. Collins, who did some of the music as well as the main theme for when visions appeared on the screen. That there was bells and just really interesting things happening with the music in that moment. And then they used it for all of the short beginnings, which was really cool. All right. Are you ready to get into the duel?
Okay. So this first episode, the duel, studio Kamikaze Douga, and the summary for this one is: a wandering stranger with a mysterious past defends a village from powerful bandits. And of course, we know that as Ronin, the Wanderer.
Ronin.
We had discussed in our speculation episode, which, I think most people had noticed. This was obviously going to be our very heavily Kurosawa themed episode with the black and white. Just like his films, the only splashes of color were the lightsabers, kind of drawing to that. It looks like the ink drawings in Japan. So, and even for me, the title card at the beginning, that felt very like Kurosawa old school movie. It was the black and white with the calligraphy.
The Fortress one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The actual setting of the village, even the way the village was drawn, the huts and all of that felt very Kurosawa. The cinematography and animation style, they slowed down in certain parts. Even the way they moved was very stilted. It wasn't a smooth, animation style. So all of that kind of I noticed, and it totally just might have, at least to me, brought back this grady black and white old movie.
Yeah. I mean, stylistically, even with it really felt like ink in how they managed to do the animation, and the light, especially the glow of the lightsabers, which was quite a new addition to Star Wars. It was not something that was added in to Star Wars until Star Wars Rebels. I don't know if you knew that. It was not something that they could do with the animation, and then they added it into the sequel trilogy. And so really the first time you see glow from lightsabers reflected on people is in TFA.
Yes. And of course, one of my favorite moments in Starkiller, the Starkiller fight, when it's glowing on Rey and Kylo. That's when it's really obvious that they're able to do that. No, it's great. And of course we saw that here as well. Going back to our speculation with the word Ronin, it's obviously the Japanese word for drifter or wanderer. And so that is what our main character is. He's a samurai without a master. The word Ronin, a lot of people had speculated before that George Lucas was playing off of all of Kurosawa and Japanese his storytelling and so Ronin was considered the Sith because you have two, the rule of two, but they have no real master and they're on their own and they're wandering, unlike the Jedi, who are a group.
I did love the music. There's the intro, which had this childlike choir that sung some choral music, and and then there was also choral that was for the Sith themselves,
when they arrived,
the bandit leader when they arrived, and the music itself felt old, but also felt influenced by the Phantom Menace, and it was Kenji Iniya who did the music, which was just so cool to hear somebody else take on a Star Wars story's music to give us something else. And yeah, to your point, what you mentioned about the music.
Oh yes, that it reminded me of the Cloud Riders theme from Solo, and it has that same entrance as well. I think when we first see the bandit leader, she shows up and the choral comes up, the voices, and I think it's really iconic because we just don't hear voices in Star Wars music, right? It's always usually instrumental. So when those moments happened, there's one other moment in one of the other shorts that it happens. It really you notice, and you're oh, this is something different.
There's so much more choral in the prequels than there is in the rest of the saga, except for the Cloud Riders theme, which specifically uses Bulgarian throat singers and a choral of them. It's rare to see, especially women or childlike voices. I can't tell the difference between the two in this, but it was very powerful and awesome. There was a lot of cool stuff that I just want to shout out, like a droid with a hat He's an astromech.
The little straw hat, and you could see his lights through the straw hat. I thought that was adorable when he's getting him fixed. And that also reminded me, I think when one of the first shots is Ronan with the little droid. And of course it calls back to the lone wolf and the cub. They're coming into the town. And then the ending shot also is the two of them leaving the town. And so it's kind of like a cute little episode book note, like, for both sides.
I loved the Ugnut tavern owner, because it like just having other types of creatures, droids, like even the guards themselves. There was like IG droid. There was a Zabrak. Like there was just like lots of cool creatures that were like around the village, not just the Ugnut tavern keeper. The setting itself kind of being remnants of war and like people who are taking advantage of things that were happening post a war.
Yeah,
set up really well.
I think obviously this is an alternate history, but I think you can kind of tell that it's after the fall of the Republic that this is taking place. And so it's kind of like you mentioned, the remnants of the war being over, and now this village has to kind of deal with the bandits who are coming in afterwards. We see the young chief. I thought that was a great thing, that the chief is a child. Like a child. Yeah. We always love child rulers like Padme.
Yeah.
So, a child ruler who, of course the Sith taunts him, and it's because the actual chief is sick, and so the child has to take over to protect their people.
Exactly. The cool like lightsaber and look of the bandit leader, just the umbrella saber. It's the coolest concept. I know people hate the spinning sabers that can allow people to fight or like fly, but like it wasn't used exactly in that way, and also it was just so cool to see.
Well, and I think it's Japanese iconography again, the umbrella that coming through it, so it doesn't, this isn't canon, it's fine. They can go as wild and crazy as they want to.
I mean, we haven't even gotten to the twins and like how much that breaks science, but I don't care. It's awesome.
Well, what's funny is because the little R2 buddy, he shoots off the little whistler.
Yeah,
I don't know what they're
like missiles.
The little missiles that shoot out, and they that's from Mandalorian. We saw that Mandalorian. So somehow, if that's acceptable, like, that they would automatically go and like hit people, then the umbrella saber is too far. Like, how are they?
I don't care. It was awesome. Honestly, that should be my level, is like, was it awesome? Yes. Okay, let's keep it. Also, like the bandit leader in the mask that she wore with like the weird like Joker like smile was so cool. And then just like her reveal of not only like what she wore before, and then like, no, let's get down to business. And then she like strips away kind of like all the layers that she was wearing.
It's kind of like it reminded me of Bride of Frankenstein, the big hair, and it was very like intimidating. I was like, is Ronan going to be okay? Is he going to be okay? Yeah. And then Ronan himself, I thought we could talk about a little bit. Because I haven't, they have a new novel based on this short. Ronan is releasing in October. I haven't had the chance to read it, but since I hadn't, this was all a surprise to me, what his character was, and his backstory, which I'm sure the novel gets into more. But yes, he's not a Jedi, and he's just passing through the village, to get his droid fixed. But then we find out, because the Sith bandit shows up, that he actually is on his own little personal mission. Either, he's not a Jedi, he has a red lightsaber, so it can be assumed that he maybe was a Sith, a former Sith. Maybe he killed his master and is on his own, and that he's collecting kyber crystals. And to me, that kind of read a little bit like atonement, like he is making up for what he's done by helping along the way through his travels. I don't know. It just struck me as that. Traveling around the galaxy, killing Sith who harm others, and collecting their kyber crystals afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, realizing that there is like some sort of power in that kyber crystal itself. Yes. So I'm still reading the Ronan novel. I'm not very far into it. So, but I am reading it ahead of time. And I do think everyone should read it based on what I have read so far. And that's going to be out in October. So I don't know. To me, that's really exciting that they're actually taking this concept and giving it more weight. There's also sort of that feeling that the Ronin is not a Jedi and is masterless. And so you kind of wonder how bad or how far off the path of what we recognize as Jedi are the Jedi. Because institutions are fallible. No matter what they teach, if it's used in service of the wrong master, it can fail you. So as an example, during the Republic time period, the fall of the Republic, Palpatine gets the Jedi to become generals and go to war, which is an antithesis to how they typically behave. But it's because they're serving that sort of master that kind of makes them do that or gets them signed up because they have no choice. And the book itself explores that concept, which is so different than how we look at Jedi.
It's that's one of my favorite aspects about the prequels. So that's really cool if they're if they're going into that level of detail about war and how you end up fighting for a war that maybe that's not what your original goal was at all.
Yeah, and like how institutions themselves don't always represent the core ideals of what you're going for because you're serving the wrong master. And it's kind of always what I wanted out of Star Wars was more ideas of feudalism and honor and how these things become complicated and messy. Like it creates a lot of interest to me.
And just to do a quick shout out, because we mentioned how much everything is remixing. So as soon as, I was waiting for the I'm not a Jedi line. And so obviously that's a hardcore heavy Ahsoka reference. But and so it just made me think, oh, okay, so it's not just like one part of because this was the first short that I watched as well. I think most people, it's the first one that pulls up on Disney Plus. So it's kind of like, oh, we're going into everything. We're going to be pulling aspects from everywhere. And I also liked the when they actually started their fight, the Ronin and the bandit lady, they're on the waterfall and he ends up getting pushed off the waterfall. And it was really cool that he ends up using the waterfall then to help him win. I thought that was just a really cool turnaround. It's not that, you see him get out of the water and then that's what he ends up, using to, it was just kind of a cool concept.
And there was also a really cool moment with it was sort of like a Sith temple that's under the waterfall that he ends up like tricking her with. And maybe he knew about it or maybe he didn't, but there's literally a lit lightsaber in the temple, right? Like, so it's obviously like this dark side space. And he uses the like end of his sheath for his sword to kill her as she's distracted by this non-existent person holding a lightsaber. It's just the temple, right? So it's like
it's just the idol that's there.
And symbolically that's like she's distracted by the idol or like the concept of it. She's distracted by her own darkness, which is so cool too.
Well, and it plays so much into the Sith wanting to destroy each other, right? That it totally plays into that. She's so focused on that instead of her own safety,
Yes.
And then he's able to catch her unawares for the final.
And then remove the threat that she represents to this village. There's also this idea that like darkness is never really gone. It's just underneath, right? Because of where the temple sits under the waterfall, right? It's always been underneath this village.
Oh, so good. So good. That's what we're saying. Like I think if you have to watch these more than once to like notice all of the details and time that the creators have put into this, it's really great.
It really is. All right.
Then at the end, he ends up giving, which I think you had mentioned earlier, but he gives the kyber crystal to the child chief and says, hold on to this because it wards off evil. And that's so interesting because I don't know, has there been anything in canon about lightsabers having an energy of their own or a kind of, I guess it's from
in Rogue One.
Yes.
Jin wears like a kyber crystal that has been given to her as like a good luck charm. And that's kind of interesting in and of itself. And it's like not a non-colorized one, of course, because she's not a Force user.
Right. Yes, that would, okay. That would
Yeah, but I mean, knowing that these things exist, etc., like, that's cool. I don't know. That's cool. That's a cool add to mythology.
No, it is.
Like,
that's what I mean.
Like,
it's
straight up just insert that.
Yeah, it's expanding the Force. Each one of these does that in a unique way of like, okay, what if this was possible in the Star Wars universe with the Force? And I think I appreciated it a lot because they could have just made, I mean, they could have just made them pew pew, right? All of these episodes, because there's enough anime, like animators in Japan are so talented with fight choreography, all of that. It didn't need to have all of these added layers to each of the shorts, but they did do that in each one of these. There's something more that you can dig into.
And every episode takes a breath to establish like character or setting or all of the above. Like literally some of them feel like slow for Star Wars, especially some Star Wars we have seen. Like it just feels like it just takes time to exist in the universe. And I think it's important to call out those moments in these episodes where it takes a little bit of time to establish where it is. The entrances of the Ronin inside of the episode, the end moment with the actual kid chief, like giving time to the characters to just be also gives us way more as well from an episode perspective.
Definitely.
So just before we wrap up this episode, because I think that we've dug in probably as much as we can right now, make sure to read Emma Candon's new book, Ronin. It is so good. It is the Star Wars story I didn't know I needed.
Yay!
So there you go. All right. So if you're stopping right now, Hammy, where can people find you?
Oh, I'm on Twitter all day, every day at Balanced Padawan.
All right. And come back next for the next episode at Tatooine Rhapsody.